Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the 10th episode of Life Design Chronicles. My name is Laura Pajín Ribeiro, and I am the Assistant Director of Life Design for the Advanced Academic Programs and co-host of this podcast. This podcast is part of the Life Design Lab at Johns Hopkins University. If you haven't heard about the Life Design Lab yet, our goal is to support and serve all Krieger and Whiting undergraduates and master's students, regardless of postgraduate plans. Through the Life Design Lab, students have access to a variety of resources, such as life design programs and courses, treks, and other experiential learning opportunities, career search and development programs and guidance, as well as networking opportunities and connections with alumni and employers. This podcast is a space for Johns Hopkins University students and industry professionals to have meaningful conversations about life decisions, and career choices, as well as a safe space to ask questions that have been sitting for too long in the back of your head. If you're curious about how others have done it, this podcast is for you. Please use the chat to type any questions you may have for our guest. This will be read at the end during the Q&A. Without further ado, I'll pass the mic to my co-host, MS in Data Analytics and Policy, Patrick Fedor.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate that nice introduction, and I want to thank Yun for being here this morning. I guess night for her, right? You're in Asia, so it's morning for us, Asia there. Like Laura said, I'm a grad student, a recent grad student from Johns Hopkins in data analytics and policy. And just to give you a little bit about me, most of my research while at Johns Hopkins focused on data in a wide range of policy issues, ranging from availability of low-income housing in Boston to minimum wage. My thesis for the master's program focused on parental discrimination within the labor market. With all that being said, I want to introduce our guest speaker today, Yun Gong. I'd like to, just talk to her today about some her experience in life and her work and her research and stuff that she's done. Yun, most current role was a senior data scientist at LinkedIn, but I think she just ended her job there in December, and now she's back in Asia for family reasons. But without further ado, I'll let Yun kind of introduce herself and we'll go from there. So Yun, take it away.
Yes. So hi, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. It's nice to be back after I left Hopkins in 2018. So I joined the PhD program in 2014 in economics at Hopkins. And after 4 years, I decided that I want to pursue my career in the industry. So I got my master and left and moved to New York. So I've been pursuing my career in New York for the past 5 or 6 years. Like Patrick mentioned, my most recent position was the senior data scientist at LinkedIn. So I'm very happy to share my experience as a data scientist today with all of you.
That sounds great. So Yun, I know we had talked a little bit on email, and so I guess for everyone else that's here, I kind of will give you guys an overview of the questions I have laid out and kind of the path that we'll go through this podcast. So I kind of have questions on general overview of like what data science is in general, kind of the profession. Then we'll kind of go into specific career questions of you, Yun, and then maybe the future of data scientists and what you see the trajectory of the profession. So I guess, Yun, like what is data science to you? Like what do you think it is? Like what kind of, just give us kind of what do you think like the profession is, or what data science is for somebody who's been in the field?
Yeah, of course. I think data science in a very simple way to explain it is just looking for patterns in data. So now we have all this technology to track what everyone does and like how the products are doing in the company and all that. But the way that will make it useful for a business is that we find the patterns and extract the insights from the data so that the business can make like their own strategies and decisions based on insights. So I think like data science is kind of the extraction process from like this massive raw data to like some consumable insights for the business leaders to act on.
Would you say that there's like a difference between data science and data analytics? Like, do you think that they're interconnected? Do you think that they're similar, or are they completely different fields?
I feel like we use it pretty interchangeably. Like sometimes we
Okay.
just say analytics as like the broader umbrella, including data science. But sometimes you do see that, in like job postings, sometimes they hire data analysts versus data scientist. So usually I would say the distinction there is like there's more technical work that's expected of data scientists. For example, you might need to use like machine learning model or AI algorithm, like have that kind of knowledge to be a data scientist versus data analyst is maybe a bit more like a little more basic, like, maybe you're manipulating Excel spreadsheet or like doing some simple data visualizations. Yeah, I think maybe that would be a distinction there. But in terms of just
Okay.
saying data analytics, like sometimes we also include data science. So there's no
It's
big
just a
difference.
broad team, right? Of
Yeah,
different people working together, looking at this data. These teams
yes.
generally like work together, right? You would say that, data analysts, data scientists pretty much work together to create data to get insight from it for meaningful for business.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, we'll refer to it as like the analytics org or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I guess so. You kind of brought this up, but what do data scientists do? Like, give us a day to day in the life of a data scientist. So you get to the office and you just like you work on your data, but like I guess kind of give us like what that means to somebody who wouldn't know what that is.
Sure. Yeah, first of all, I would say like no, like there's no like one day that's exactly the same as the day. Every
Yeah.
day is quite different. And and like maybe stereotypically people will say, oh yeah, you're a data scientist. Then the first thing you come into the office, like open the computer and stare at all the data and see what's there.
Yeah.
But I would say it really depends on the business needs, like, depends on what's needed at that moment. And sometimes like you get assigned to longer term projects, then you kind of have, it depends on where you are at the project, right? Initially, you might need to scope out the project, and then you have to choose the appropriate methodology to like, analyze the data or model the data. And then, you kind of break it down into steps. And then depends on where you are in the steps and you deliver and like report up to your managers or present to your stakeholders. And there's sometimes like ad hoc requests or like shorter term requests, right? Like when I was working at LinkedIn as a product data scientist, like managing all these internet products facing the end users, there are a lot of times there are fire drills and time-sensitive requests because if something breaks, you have to really dive into it very quickly and respond to your business partners, like product managers, engineers. So it really depends on needs, and it really depends on what situations that might come up. But one thing I would say is that it's not just about like looking at data and analyzing data. A big part of the job is also communicating. Also, when things come up, you want to be able to understand what's the business pain points is there, what is the appropriate solution to it, and how do you communicate to your partners. And sometimes you might even have to push back because there's just so much on your plate. You need to have to learn how to prioritize among various tasks as well.
Yeah. No, so effectively communicating what you can see in the data sometimes is not as easy for people that, think like in the data realm might not be as easy to present to people that are like, what is all this stuff? What are you showing me? What are all these graphs and things? So
Yeah,
what
that's a great point.
software? Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
go you.
I was going to add on to that. That was a really great point because, a lot of time people working in data science, they are great at technical work. They're great, like good at statistics. They're really good at coding. They're really good at like generalizing insights from the data. But the hard part is actually communicating results to your stakeholders, who most of the time are not technical audience. So how do
Yes.
you make them understand what p-value is? How do you make them
Yeah.
understand like a regression coefficient or the machine
Yeah.
learning model predictions? So you kind of have to explain it in a very intuitive way. If you put it like dumb it down in a bit, like to make it
Yeah.
simple for them to understand, so that they will be convinced and actually make
Yeah.
decisions based on your results. That part is the most important because if your results didn't get and it didn't persuade them, right? Like then
Yeah.
nothing would happen and your work does not have impact. So impact
Yeah.
is ultimately in a corporate setting what gets you to the next level, what gets you to be promoted and things like that. So yeah, communicating is really important.
Yeah, no, I think that sometimes when people see or like hear of statistics or all these machine learning things, it just goes right over their head. So I think effectively talking about it to people that don't understand the realm at all is almost harder than the coding part itself for a lot of data scientists or people in the field.
Yes.
So yeah, I guess what software and tools do you use most regularly? I know there's Python, there's R. I do have a question in here on which do you prefer, but we'll go first. Like, what software and tools do you use most regularly?
I see. I feel like there are two questions here. So in terms of the
Yeah.
tools, I would say um, each company kind of has their own tools. And
Okay.
it was some like for LinkedIn, because it's very big tech company, they develop their
Yeah.
internal tools. And for other companies, they might like have contractor like vendors giving them tools. So I would say tools really differ across companies, and they don't expect you to
Okay.
know the tool before you join. But if you're speaking of programming languages, I would say at work, I mostly use SQL and Python as well,
Okay.
and as well as Tableau too, if you need to do some data visualizations.
Visuals.
But
Yeah.
Python and SQL are the most common in industry, I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I know that for JHU students, a lot of the programs are taught in R. So a lot of us are learning R. And so I kind of wanted to see if R was something that you guys use or if you've seen it in the industry or.
Yeah, so I learned R in grad school
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
And I learned Python on the job actually.
Yeah.
So I would say, and I remember there's one colleague that I had at CVS Health did use R to do most of his work, although the rest of the team used Python. So I do think
Yeah.
Python is like the more common language because it's like easier to productionize.
Yeah.
While R is a bit more academic. But if you're fluent in R, I think in interviews, sometimes they will let you choose too. You can use R to do interviews too. And it's not hard to
Yeah.
learn Python if you already know one language. So I would say, it's not
Yeah.
too big of a deal.
I
But if you want me to choose one, I think I would pick Python.
yeah. I guess it's also a little confusing if one of you is in R and the whole team is in Python, scaling your whole project with one person working in R might be a little difficult if so you know.
Yeah,
I
well, we
guess
try to
so
like accommodate that, but yeah, usually it's better if everyone uses the same. Mhm.
same. So when you're, I guess for you, because you've been in the workforce, what are typical backgrounds for people that you see that are becoming data scientists? They obviously need some kind of technical experience. Are you seeing a lot of people that are getting educations in data scientists, or I guess what's like a background you're seeing a lot that are people are going into the field?
Yeah, that's a good question. I feel like the degrees in data science are kind of like a more recent phenomenon. Like back in the
Okay.
days, now I feel a little old, but back in the days when I was in grad school, I didn't even hear about degrees in data science, right? Like,
Yeah.
and like I think when I graduated, people who did data science are from all kinds of like more quantitative degrees. Like they
Yeah.
might have done like physics or computer science. They might have done economics, statistics,
Hmm.
things like that. But I think recently there are like a lot of universities have degrees in data science, so there are a lot more data science major colleagues also. But I would say in general, maybe some background in math and statistics, background
Okay.
in coding. Also, if you have done empirical research, so I did empirical research in economics, and I need to touch
Yeah.
data a lot. I need to clean up the messy data,
Yeah.
like do some modeling on it, extract insights, and that's essentially data science. So yeah, if you
Yeah.
have exposure to real world data, and you know how to like process it, then I think you would have good background for it.
Some people might not go to college to get a degree in computer science or something, but they'll be strong coders. Either they self-taught on being, they really know Python. Um, do you see people going into the field in that avenue, like without a degree, an undergrad degree or a master's degree, or you see mostly people with degrees?
I think that, yeah, if you don't have a direct major in a quantitative field or data science or computer science, then maybe you can take some courses on those or do some side project that could demonstrate your ability to do data. Then I think that'll be good too.
Yeah, no, you see all these like data camps or boot camps of coding. And so I don't know if they are a supplement for an education. They certainly aren't, but I do think that like could people from other careers, go to these boot camps and end up in a data science role? I don't know, and I don't know if you've seen anyone like that, but it seems like you have some friend that you
Yeah,
maybe knew that was a
yeah,
literature
definitely
major.
there are. Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah,
I know there are there are a lot of very selective boot camps as well. So, once
yeah,
you get into the program, then they'll kind of make sure that you get placed well on jobs, or at least like give you substantial help in getting a job or interviews.
yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely
Uh,
say, like also when we go into college, right, we don't know like, oh, I'm gonna do data science. When I went into college, I was
yeah.
like, oh, I want to do economics. I'm gonna be a professor or
Yeah,
something. Right? Like we keep changing what we want to do. So it's hard to kind of
yeah,
anticipate like your end profession from like when you enter college at like 18. So yeah,
yeah,
I'll definitely say, especially in the industry, like as long as you can prove that you have relevant skills, you don't have to have like the very exact degree or background for it. Yeah, I think there are many
yeah.
avenues that could, achieve what you want.
Yeah, no, that I think makes complete sense. So I think we've kind of gone over the generals. Let's like more talk about specifics for you. So you were a PhD grad student, and then you transitioned to the professional world, right? You stopped your PhD. What kind of uh, led you to do this? Like, what made you stop the research and kind of go right into the workforce?
Yes, that's a great question and got asked a lot. So, well, I guess that will go back to my undergrad. So when I was in undergrad, I took a lot of economic classes, in particular one class on the Chinese economy, taught by a German professor who has really interesting insights about his observation about the Chinese economy. And I read a lot of economic papers from that course. And I was like, oh, this is fascinating, like the power of economics to help a country develop. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I wanted to pursue an academic career. I want to do research because it's so great. And I even co-authored with a professor and published the paper before I got into Hopkins. So, and then I went to the PhD program in economics at Hopkins. And then after a few years, and I realized that, oh, it actually takes like at least a couple years to do one research project, and it's a very solitary process. And it's kind of hard like to see very tangible like real world impact. I think that like really great impact is like, publishing at the top journal or like going to seminars
Yes.
and talking to other great intellectuals. That's also very satisfying. But I think gradually I realized that I like to do something like has a faster turnover and something I
Yeah.
can see very tangible impact. And
Yes.
I really love interacting with people. And my favorite part at the PhD program was actually teaching. Like I was
Yeah.
being a teaching assistant. I was a course instructor, and I love interacting with students, like, and helping them understand things. And that's kind of the tipping point where I realized maybe I actually wanted to be in the industry rather than in academia.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I made the transition out, and I moved to New York to start my career.
Okay. And so then right from there, did you go into like a kind of a data science role right away, or you kind of did a little research, or like how did you break into the data science field from quantitative econ, like a lot of research, obviously they're related. Um, but I guess like how did you get into data science from there?
Yeah. I think there are maybe two components of it. The first component was like at that point I was like I'll just find a job and see like, what I could do. So my first job that I found was more of like an analytical consulting role. I was like an external
Okay.
consultant for UBS, the investment bank in New York.
Yeah.
For that, like for consulting, you are also doing some analytics, even though it may not be as technical as a data scientist, but I was still
Yeah.
working with data and then generalizing insights and give the leadership recommendations. And that's how I like think that, oh yeah, I love working with data and I would love to do more technical work given my background,
Yeah.
because I did a lot of economic modeling back in grad school. And I
Yeah.
have also talked to other friends who have similar background as me. I have another friend from Duke. He also did his econ PhD for a while, and then he realized that, oh, he wanted to do, the industry job. And his graduate figured out that's a great, like we have great skill set for the job, even though our degree wasn't in data science, but the skill set we have is actually very relevant. So that's kind of how like when I was working on that job, I start to search for my next job, thinking that I want some more technical work, and applied to like data scientist positions.
Two roles. Yeah. Did your grad or did your educational background prepare you? I mean, I know that you had the quantitative research, but did you have a lot of the technical skills? Were you programming in grad school? Like, you were probably using SQL. You were using R as well, and that kind of gave you technical skills, or did you, self-teach yourself? I think you said Python. You taught yourself Python. So
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say for direct skills, maybe like 50%.
okay,
Like even for programming languages, I don't think I really used R in my job. And for SQL is
okay,
like a complete industry language. I don't think
yeah,
in academia people really use SQL, because SQL is like a query language where, if you store your data on cloud or something, you want to like extract, like pull it out. That's in
yeah.
companies that you use SQL to write the query to pull it out, right? I don't think that in academia people do that. So yeah, I didn't know SQL. But I would say the skills I have from grad school was that I have good data intuition, and I have solid
Okay.
background in statistics, because doing economics, you need pretty strong math background also. So I
Yeah.
have solid background in those. Um, and then yeah, I self-learned a bit too for SQL and Python for my data scientist job.
I mean, there's so many resources out there. So I guess how does one find something that would help them learn a language on their own? Or how did you
Um,
do it?
yeah, I think there are definitely a lot of resources. I'm thinking HackerRank is one of them, and there's also
Okay.
LeetCode. There's like tons of SQL and Python practice there. But
Okay.
also, yeah, one thing is that when I got my data scientist job at CVS Health, initially I was in a team that did like a bit less technical work, a little bit more like
Okay.
consulting work. But while I was on the team, I kind of like I was very proactive in like finding the next
Yeah.
opportunity that could get me the exposure to do technical work. And I collaborated with another team who did machine learning mostly. And I was
Yeah.
like learning while I was on the project. I somehow convinced my boss that I could do that project, and I learned
Yes.
while I was doing that project. That's really great experience. I think like learning on the job, like also looking at
Yeah.
what the productionized code is like, how people write code in industry setting. So that's when I learned. And similarly for SQL too, like as I work in more technical data work, I need to have like larger amount of data, meaning that I have to manipulate them more, so that
Yeah.
I write more complex SQL because of that.
Yeah. There's just like a lot of exposure out there in the professional world. If you can get a job, you can learn so much on the job, I think. And, I think that that's very helpful to
Yeah,
everyone.
and
Yeah.
also one lesson I would say now that I think about it is that like when you are starting out, just get like, don't be afraid to just get any opportunity that you can get and start from there, right? Like once you're there, you can keep learning new skills in your spare time or on the job. Or even once you're in that company, you can start to find what are the other interesting teams, what are the work they're doing. If something interests you, you can gradually gravitate towards that team or stream of work and trying to get an opportunity that you could really do the more technical work or something that really satisfy you more. So yeah, I would say like, maybe just do it gradually and eventually you will get there. That
I
would be
think that
my
that's
learning.
great advice. I think like, experiential learning on the job is great advice to anyone who like is a little wary or nervous about like, oh, do my credentials fit this job posting perfectly? I think you can learn so much on the job. And when you're on a job, just absorb everything you can every minute. So I think that that's great advice, Yun. So you mentioned a little bit about your job at CVS. Can you kind of describe what you did there? You started at one position, you were there during the pandemic, you transitioned to another position. So you just kind of can you talk about that a little bit, your role there and what you started off and where you kind of ended at CVS?
Yeah, so I supported the insurance branch called Aetna under CVS Health on their commercial business. So, well, the two teams I was on, like one's like a bit more consulting based, the other more machine learning model based, but they're still supporting the same business. So the stuff I did for machine learning modeling is more that, it's more of helping sales team to do prospect targeting, right? So if you think of yourself as like one of the sales team people and they sell B2B, like they sell their insurance to business. Yeah, think about it, sell to a company, but there are so many companies on the market, right? Like who do you target?
Yeah.
Who if you target would be the most likely to buy your products. So how machine learning comes in or how the modeling comes in is like we take the historical data. Like historically we know which companies we sold to, right? And what are their characteristics with the industry, the employees demographic and stuff like that. We have all the data for that. So I trained the machine learning model based on those historical data. And then I predict out of the companies that haven't bought our products yet, who are the ones that are likely to buy our products? And I have a prediction score, right? And then I rank all these companies based on the scores. And then I shortlist them and give them the list, whereas like based on my prediction, these are the list of prospective customers that you should target. And it really helped the sales team. It's like, I think it's 4x, 4 times of the success rate than they had before, just because of the machine learning model. So that's, I would say, how data science brings in like business impact. So it brings the company more revenue.
Yeah, that's how it adds direct value to the company and how data scientists work. That was your last role, was the machine learning. Your first role was mostly like an analyst. You were kind of working with Aetna as like kind of just like a non-technical role, or
no, it was still a data scientist role. It was just more of a bit more client facing in that sense. It's more that I do the data work, but I also like present a lot to stakeholders, do more of the communication work, whereas the second team was more of the machine learning development team. Yeah, a lot of coding. Yeah.
How did your role or job change during the onset of the pandemic? Did it change at all? Were you in office, then out of office? I mean, everyone was out of office at a certain point, but I guess how did that change, and did it affect your team or what you were doing?
Yeah. It was a drastic change. So I started and I went into the office in Soho in New York, and I had my colleagues there. So, well, the interesting thing is that our team was also kind of divided in 3 locations to begin with. Like we have our New York office, one Boston office, and the other is in Hartford, Connecticut. I was in New York office, but when I joined the company, I had my orientation there, and I met all these wonderful colleagues, and then I think 3 months later, the pandemic broke out, and then we were all sent back home. That was kind of like, it was pretty scary moment because
Yeah.
like at that point people thought the world was ending, right? And I felt like, and I
Yeah.
was in my apartment alone, and I felt like I don't know if I'm gonna live until tomorrow. At the same time,
Yeah.
I'd be like, I have to keep my sanity to do my work. So
Good
it
job.
was
Yeah.
pretty challenging. And the company understands that. Like they put in a lot of
Yeah.
resources to support the employees emotionally. And also the
Yeah.
managers are very understanding too. And we have a lot of like virtual gathering, like talking about our feelings, our challenges, and things like that. Yeah. And then yeah, it kind of became fully remote because like, no one really went into office for a very long time. And then you have to kind of find the balance between work and your life because your computer is always there. And like whenever you eat, you can still see the email, or like in the
Yeah.
evening, you can always come back to reply into the email. So that's kind of how you have to like have a work-life separation, given
Yes.
that you're doing both at the same place. That was a bit tricky too. Mhm.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people face the work-life balance of, you're always connected via your phone or your computer's right there, and something pops up, and it's like, and New York City apartments, it's like they're not the largest, so it's you're always connected.
Yeah.
But I guess more specifically, did your role change at all? Like, so you were still a stream of work of working with people. You were doing a lot more Zooms, but you could still work on projects together as teams and kind of send it off to somebody else. And like, how did it kind of work being remote and working on a data science teams on these machine learning projects?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like the technologies, the state of technology was such that it's not that hard to communicate your work
Okay.
virtually.
Yeah.
With all these, like you can share code and all people can read your code and give you feedback on chat.
Yeah.
And you can share your deck, like if you have the
Yeah.
results, you can share your deck, you can screen share with your business partners. Yeah, I don't find that challenging.
Okay.
And also because our team was already divided in 3 offices
Yeah.
to be,
That
so
it, that it was
even
already
before that, we had to do a lot
natural.
of virtual communication.
Yeah, so it was already kind of natural that it was easy to just, instead of being in 3 offices, now you were in 100 offices in everyone's apartment or however many. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Mhm.
so right from CVS, then you went to LinkedIn, right? And that was your most current role.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess, can you describe a little bit about your role at LinkedIn now? Like what you did there? Did you use
Mhm.
machine learning again? You were a senior data scientist up until a few months ago. So I guess, can you
Mhm.
talk to us a little bit about that role?
Yes, sure. So I was a product data scientist there. Um,
Okay.
by that, so for a lot of tech firms, right, and they have product. By product, they means like product features. So if you go on LinkedIn
Yeah.
website, like every button you click, we call it a product features. So that's like what
Okay.
I was supporting. And in particular, my team supports like the core product, which is jobs. So that's what, like LinkedIn has
Okay.
many functions. Like jobs is the core one because like you go in a job tab and there's like a list of job
Yes.
postings you can apply to, like whichever
So
one.
many.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's also function, it's like more of professional social media where people share articles or updates. So that's another function. But my team was supporting the core function, and I was in charge of a lot of job related products, including job search, job seekers, job candidate management. Yeah, and it's very different from my role at CVS Health. I didn't do as much machine learning. I did more of A/B testing.
Okay.
So A/B testing is like a very popular method that the big tech firms use to test out their products before rolling out to the public. So if you think about it,
Okay.
like there's like a new button or new feature that LinkedIn plans to roll
Yeah.
out. Right? You can't just put it out there because then what if people don't like it? What if it breaks something?
Yeah.
And then it would really cause all these revenue metrics or user engagement metrics to drop, right? It's very risky given given LinkedIn has 900 million users. So what
the scale of what you're putting it on.
So what we do to make sure that it's okay to roll out is that, initially we have this new feature. Initially, we kind of just rolled out within internal employees and see if anything breaks. And then we kind of gradually roll out to 1% of the users, 5% of the users, and ramp up all the way to see if the metrics are okay. So metrics is like what we use to measure whether the product is successful. So we'll monitor the metrics and we kind of use statistical interpretation to understand whether it's doing well. And then we'll give recommendations to product managers to make a decision to roll out or not.
Yeah. So so A/B testing, you were like kind of testing the products to see if they were working. And then you were using these statistical methods to see, are they getting clicks? Are you getting positive feedback? Stuff like that. Like that's what you were working on at LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's one work stream. There are also other work streams. Like also like longer term, like deep dive analysis. You want to understand what drive the true north metrics, like what are the components of revenue, which products contributes to more revenue, what are the potential markets that we could develop, things like that. So basically leveraging the data that LinkedIn collected and trying to extract insights, right, to tell what's the next step that the business could take.
Oh yeah, no, that's fascinating stuff. I mean, it's amazing that like a tech company, they have all this data and how can they use it to leverage, better revenue or whatever. What was more challenging between, like, I guess, what was more challenging at LinkedIn versus CVS? Was there anything more challenging? Was it just a completely different role or?
Yeah, so I would say LinkedIn was more challenging in a sense that I was monitoring products. In a way, products are like stock markets in a sense because there are always 900 million live users using it. And, things could happen. And when things happen, you really need to respond fast. And sometimes there are like multiple things, like multiple fire drills coming to you all at once. And you really need to understand what's the issue behind it, why is it important, why is it urgent? And you need to learn how to prioritize across so many tasks. And sometimes even the skills to push back, because there will be like, people more senior to you or like other business partner trying to like push you to get their work stream done, but then you will have to understand what's the most important thing to do. So I think that part was more challenging at LinkedIn.
And at CVS, you just had like kind of more specific tasks. Is that what made it more simple? It was just like kind of, this is what we're doing today. This is like, we're not working with 900 million users. It's more the business you're working for, as opposed to LinkedIn, you're working for these people, like 9 million users.
Yeah, I would say it's not because it's more simple. It's because yes, first of all, it's not like 900 million users waiting for you to solve one problem. It's more that we have a backend machine learning algorithm, right? If something breaks, we can have a little bit more leeway to fix it. And tell our shareholders that, like, can you wait for a couple of days? Like, we'll get this done.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on it. And also, it tends to be a bit more longer term project, like developing a whole model and doing prediction. So you have a little bit more time to think through and correct things or do more iterations. Whereas if you're working with live products, get it done very soon. So you really have to have very sharp intuition and insights and say, yeah, this is good. Let's go. Yeah.
No, that's makes sense, but seems stressful as well.
It's stressful. And also, the data science org at LinkedIn is a bit lean. So they didn't hire as many data scientists as they hired software engineers, I would say. So each data scientist is tasked with multiple work streams. So every day, like, you come into work, you don't really know what to expect. Like, even though you already have piles of work waiting for you to get done, but then you still don't know what to expect. Yeah.
Yeah, there's more coming at you.
Yes.
How was, so speaking of, you said it was a little lean, but how was the team structured at LinkedIn?
Mhm.
It seems like you were given specific tasks, but were you also, you were a little self-directed as well. You said like you had longer term projects. Were those more like self-directed if you had time? I
Mhm.
guess kind of how was the team structured? Were you leading a team? Did you have people under you? I guess, can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I see. So how the team was structured, I would say, well, first of all, it's divided by org, by their business functions. That you have the jobs, you have flagship. Flagship is more, these the main page, social media, and then you have notification. You have different kind of data org within the data science team.
Okay.
And under each org, like within jobs, maybe they divided to like a 6 or 7 people team with one manager, and then you manage several products on that. And yeah, and as a senior data scientist, you're expected to be able to self-direct more, I would say.
Okay.
So there are 2 components. So each quarter, they do have quarterly planning to say, within this quarter, here are the list of projects that I expect you to get done. And at the same time that you are also expected to support these products. So whatever comes up, you still have to like fix or solve the problems. So that becomes
Okay.
tricky when you have a deadline at the end of the quarter, and also the
Yeah.
file drill will come up sometime down the road. And that's
Yeah.
where you kind of prioritize, right? Like, how important is this? If it's very important, then yeah, you do the file drill first, and then you also communicate to your manager that like this other project may get delayed because we need X days to work on this request. So
Yeah.
communication is very important, so that you don't look like, oh, you couldn't get the work done because of
Yeah.
X. Yeah. And
Yeah.
usually they're understanding, they expect that things will happen. Yeah.
Yeah, no, things break, unfortunately. Even though you have a schedule of what you want to get done, things still break and they throw that train off the tracks.
Yes.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. And also as
um,
a senior data scientist, you're expected to kind of maybe mentor more like
yeah,
junior data scientists, or help more junior data scientists to get on board when they join. So yeah, that's another dimension
that's
of
what I
it.
was going to say. Like, what kind of differentiated a senior data scientist from a staff data scientist? Were you, I guess, like a mentor? You weren't their boss, but maybe you were teaching them or having them help you with tasks when you could, or is that kind of how, I guess, why was it senior? Like, what was the differentiation between senior and like a regular data scientist?
Yeah, so senior data scientists, you're expected to multitask, like what I
Okay.
mentioned. You're already working on a
Yeah.
project and something new comes up to you, and then you kind of think, okay, which one should I do first? And what is the important thing to do there? Should I push back? Who should I communicate? Um, so yeah, you kind of have to, you're expected to be able to self-function more, based on the
Yeah.
work streams that are assigned to you. Um,
Okay.
Whereas like a regular data scientist, I guess you're expected to do one thing at a time. And you're expected to take less like at the same time, I would say. Maybe like if
Okay. Yeah.
data science supports like X work streams, maybe regular data scientist would support like 1 or 2 at most.
All
Yeah.
right. Just to kind of gain technical skills, like the junior data scientists should kind of take one at a time just to kind of like build up to that senior level. It seems
Mm-hmm.
to be the case. Yeah. Um, I guess I have another question is like, so you worked on the job listing employer data side of LinkedIn, and this is kind of just like a question, like a fun question. Did the data that was generated from job listings and employer data from LinkedIn, was it a predictor of the overall like labor or economic conditions of the US? Did you notice any of that? I know that somebody that has, your degree in econ, you probably thought some of this stuff. So it's very fascinating to think like, can the stuff that you see on LinkedIn, job postings or data, give you a broader overview of the labor conditions in the US? Or you don't know
Yeah,
or don't
definitely.
think so?
Well, LinkedIn has real-time labor market data. It's essentially,
Yeah.
how the labor
Yeah.
market is in the US.
Fascinating stuff.
Yeah, it's very fascinating, people list their skills, experience there. So it's just such rich data there to tell you how each industry is doing, how the labor market is doing, what are the skills that are in high demand right now. There's actually a team specifically dedicated to that called the Economics Graph Team. They do a lot of, I think they even have some collaboration with the government, because if you work with government data, like US Census data, stuff like that, they take survey every 5 to 10 years, which is like a bit outdated to begin with. And not, and a survey is not very accurate in general. So yeah, I would say, that's like that's what LinkedIn has. But although one thing I want to caveat is that a lot of professions and companies on LinkedIn are more like white collar. So it's not really fully representative of the whole economy, right? You still have manufacturing and other blue collar jobs that are not represented on LinkedIn. So that's something that you have to keep in mind when you observe what's happening in the data.
Yeah, no, that's a fair point and something I didn't think of. You're not going to be looking like, you're not going to be finding, minimum wage stuff on LinkedIn per se. I mean, you might, but it's going to be more white collar stuff, and it's going to be more indicative of that industry. You're going to be missing certain sectors of the economy, I think. Yeah.
Can I interrupt?
Yep.
So we have 5 more minutes. And if it's okay, I would like to know if Susan has any questions that she wants to ask.
Sure, yeah.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I just want.
Yeah, I know we're getting close to time, so I was going to say, we're getting close here.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry,
Thanks,
I was
Shita.
having some technical difficulties in the beginning, so I hope I don't cut out. But I did have a little bit of a question, kind of to move in a different direction. Maybe since COVID, or maybe it's just been evolving all along. Do you feel like, in your experience working in the field, you've seen new industries kind of break into, using and gathering data, maybe, again, moving away from some of the more white collar, traditional data-centric decision-making industries? Do you feel like there's more of an interest among maybe smaller businesses and different kinds of industries for the kind of work that you do, maybe at a different scale? But how do you see that changing in the field? Different industries kind of introducing data-driven decision-making methods.
So if I understand correctly, are you saying that how like other industries around that, these big tech firms are using data to make their own decisions?
Exactly.
Yeah. I would definitely say I feel like data or data science has really been playing a more pivotal role in the past few years. Like companies, no matter they're big or small, they are all trying to make decisions based on data because it's more rational. Previously without data, it's like whoever is more senior in the room, whoever has the stronger opinions in the room will make the decision. While like with data, anyone with a technical background could really extract very objective insights and tell the business, based on this data, this is what we should do. And we have empirical evidence to prove that yes, it's successful, right? So I would say, in a way, it's also decentralizing the power of decision making, making it more scientific and objective, and have something very tangible for discussion rather than just arguing among leadership or making assumptions and things like that. Yeah, and I think that for definitely within smaller business, they have their own methodology to collect data. Like bigger tech firms definitely have like all of their tools and stuff ready, but I did see a trend with smaller business that they're also collecting data and trying to make their decision based on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Laura, do we have a few more minutes, or do we have other people that want questions?
Sorry, we have 3 more minutes. So if you want to continue, it's all yours.
Okay, yeah, I think I guess the final questions I'll ask is kind of about the future of data science. Like, what do you think, or how do you think data science will change in the future? You know, we always see or hear about AI. We're all going to lose our jobs to AI. Do you think, like, what effect does AI have on the data science profession and kind of the future of the field? And I think we'll leave it on that. So I'll let you answer, Yun.
Yeah, so I would say, well, definitely AI will have impact in many industries, but maybe one thing to data science is that, you know, they could make things more automated. And I know that there are already tools where you ask the questions in kind of like plain English, right? And they can kind of spit out code for you. So maybe at some point we don't have to write code ourselves. Although now I still think those tools do not like give out very accurate code. You still have to have human oversight to verify if it's true. And sometimes that takes longer than if you just write it yourself. So, you know, it's not there yet. That's what I'm trying to say. But if it's there one day, then I would say redevelop skills that are irreplaceable by AI. Like, for example, I feel like business intuition, you know, communicating cross-functionally, those are hard to be done by AI. I would say something within human genius. I personally don't think AI could replicate that soon.
Yes.
So yeah, I would say, you know, we'll just keep evolving based on where the industry is. It's a fast evolving field. You know, I would like suggest maybe just keep up with what's the latest on technology, and then take some courses, talk to professionals, try to like keep yourself like master the latest skills. I think that's the most important.
Yeah, no, I think that's all great advice. And I think it's something that we talked about earlier, like effectively communicating. I mean, AI can generate all this stuff, but if it can't communicate what a p-value is, it's not going to replace that, you know, data scientists, at least in the short term. So, so I think that's all great advice, and it's been a great talk. So thanks, Yun, thanks, Laura. I'm happy to be here, and it was a good time.
It was wonderful. I love the conversation, and I even have some questions, but for the sake of time, I will probably email you to ask you those questions, and maybe I can incorporate them in the video later as text. So thank you so much. Patrick, I'm sorry that I didn't pronounce your last name right. I got nervous.
It's okay. It's okay.
But it was a wonderful conversation. You did a great job. Thank you for, you know, all the hard work communicating everybody. Susan, thank you for being here. And Yun, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I will reach out for future projects that we are doing. I told you a little bit of that. So yeah, I'm going to stop recording and hope to see you all soon. Patrick, I will reach out to you also. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Yun. Thanks for everyone for coming.